Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May 12th, 2026 meeting of the Patton Bay Library Board Trustees. I call the meeting to order, seeing that a quorum is in place. We'll proceed with our set agenda. The first being the Secretary's report, the minutes of the April 14th meeting. Are there any comments, questions, suggestions, changes to the April 14th meeting? I would add, I've just one note that doesn't actually require a change, but I would note that the reference to the letter of condolence to the husband of Margaret Totten, that it says I wrote it, but I wanted to make sure it was understood. I wrote it on behalf of the board as a whole. It's not just
Thank you.
Not just me. Right.
Thanks. Move approval?
Motion for approval. Michael's made it. Second.
Suki's thing.
Second. All right. All in favor? No. Any opposed? Minutes are approved unanimously. I want to say we will have an adjustment to the agenda depending on the arrival of Ryan Guitars and Simon's Architects. He's scheduled under old business, but since he has a presentation to make, we don't want to have him force him to wait. So as soon as he appears, we will, I think, interrupt the first appropriate moment, our ongoing agenda, and then we'll switch to his presentation about the way forward on reimagined spaces. Comments are just a few. One is, as you may have already deduced, we have a very full agenda, more so than usual. So let's keep that in mind as we try to go through, especially the more routine parts on the agenda tonight. Also, just a reminder that the meeting is recorded and widely available. So I think when there may be, I say that partly in connection with what recently happened at Woolwich, there may be some feelings off record comments that we want to make, but this should not be part of the agenda. We will have an executive session also tonight following the regular agenda.
Could I suggest then that we take the consent agenda, and unless people have something to add to the reports that are already in the materials, that we don't ask those people to make actual reports and reiterate what's in the materials, just
Yes.
new questions.
That's right. That's become our practice anyway. We don't rehash that, but just the consent agenda will be just for questions or clarifications.
Okay.
Nothing to go over. But that being said, since Brian is not yet here, expected, but hasn't appeared yet, let's move on to the librarian's report.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep my comments to not much, but I'm really excited to share that we have staff here, Hannah, Aurora, Karen, Laurel, that are gonna be talking about the Library of Things. So that, so I'm actually gonna turn it right over to Hannah, who's got some slides in Canva to share. And so if you wanna take over and, if you wanna share the screen.
If you wanna plug in the little thing, whichever you.
Yeah, this is fine. Why don't you take over just here and pull it up, since you have it up.
Okay.
And here, plug in this.
I don't need that if you're.
Oh, you
want
don't?
me to just say, that's just for advancing slides.
Oh, okay.
You want me to just think about it?
Yes, please take my spot. Stand here.
I can't find it. Oh, it's alphabetical.
Yeah.
Is it, yeah, how do you
At the bottom.
or sharing? Yes. So I'm here as part of our Library of Things team, which includes the four of us plus Mary, who is manning the children's room downstairs. We, over the last more than 6 months, have revamped our Library of Things. So I am here, and we all are here to give a little history and a little update and a little what comes next. I'm sure you've seen it by now on your way in, the new spot for the adult collection, and that was a big motivator of this revamp, was getting those items moved over there. But here's our Library of Things summary / mission statement. The Library of Things allows patrons to borrow non-traditional library items such as a telescope, DVD player, or lawn game. Access to these items removes financial barriers, promotes accessibility, enriches lives and learning opportunities, and sparks joy. The Library of Things aligns with the mission of our library to offer a collection of materials that meets the needs, interests, and abilities of our diverse communities. We've actually, Library of Things have been popping up all over libraries locally, nationally, and internationally for a long time now. And while our Library of Things is being promoted in a new way, we've actually had it for more than a decade. It used to be called the Unusual Things Collection or the Unusual Things to Check Out. And it started almost a decade ago with the purchase of a few American Girl dolls.
Donations. They were donated.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
They were donated.
Yes. With a donation of a few American Girl dolls that supported an American Girl Doll Club program, which is a program that has been ongoing in some form since then. So we now have 15 American Girl dolls, and they joined the early things, which included an electricity monitor from Efficiency Maine and an Orion Star Blast telescope. And then a few years later, a local Girl Scout troop gifted us 2 ukuleles, and then we purchased some backpack kits from a grant. During the pandemic, we used a Maine Public Library Fund grant and purchased 13 lawn games, which are the Giant Connect 4s, croquet, lawn bowling, all of those. We also added technology, and a lot of that was added after the fact, out of necessity, and to fill holes that we found in our community and in our own offerings, such as we bought DVD drives when we realized our new patron computers did not have the ability to play DVDs. And the collection continued to grow in this way organically, but a little haphazardly, and it involved many different staff members across many different departments, many of whom are not even here anymore. It's involved so many people who work here. And then in September of 2025, an official committee was formed, and we started with myself, Mary, Elizabeth, and Laurel, and then later welcomed in Aurora and Karen specifically for cataloging, which is its own whole thing, as you can imagine. So the goals of this committee and for 2025 and 2026 was to create the Library of Things team, increase visibility for the collection, promote what we already have in the collection, work out the logistics and processes for the collection itself, for adding the collection, for deleting the collection, for maintaining it, to standardize and streamline what we already have, what we can do going forward, and create a budget for this collection that includes materials, staffing, and repairs. One of the first things we did was split the things that we already have into these focus areas. And this came along from when we switched the name from Unusual Things to Check Out to Library of Things to align with standards and practices of other libraries. And this also helps with the recognizability of our collection. When people think libraries, they think Library of Things. Now it's getting to be something that people really know. So we streamlined our collection into these 5 focus areas: recreation and play, outdoor exploration, technology, language, and health and wellness. We will probably add more categories as needed in the future, like arts and crafts is a big one that we've got some things set aside for that. That will probably be the next one. But for now, we're focusing on items that go into these 5 categories.
Parent cafe, yes.
And we also, a huge part of what we did was standardizing things like liability disclaimers, displays, and selection considerations for new additions, circulation rules, how donation offers would be handled, and where the collections would be physically located. And we looked at collections at other libraries, we updated our website, we retagged and recatalogued all of our current items, and created new display and marketing tools. This was such a huge amount of work for everyone involved. It took us nearly 6 months just to get from the start of the committee to the part where we could launch it to the public and put it out on display. We just started displaying it in February, but the work doesn't end there because it's a library and because it's a collection. We're maintaining it, we're adding new things, we're deleting things, we're repairing things, we're tracking things. But just a huge kudos to everybody here, plus Mary, because this was such a huge amount of work and really took everyone very carefully deliberating and creating this collection. But the result is great. The result is a new home, for the adult collection, which now includes the lawn games. You may have seen our lawn games being stored in such a variety of places all over the building prior to this move. Yeah, my office, Mary's office, under the stairs, in the children's room, just kind of all over the place. Now they have their own shelf. Now that the weather's nice, we're seeing things go out more, and I can only imagine that's going to continue throughout the summer. And the children's collection hasn't really moved very much, but it's newly organized, newly polished. It's displayed really in a really lovely way. And just all of the items have been moved out of the desks and closets to the shelves where people can see them and access them. It's such a huge difference to pick it up and look at it rather than seeing it on a list somewhere. One of our biggest goals was to increase visibility and awareness and through that circulation. And this is the main way that we are doing that. Here are some new items that we have added just within the first few months. We have adaptive kits, memory kits, main big night and outdoor visibility kits, a projector, a Chromecast, a square reader, a birding backpack, playground balls, and beach games. And these are all in the adult collection. Just since February. Coming soon, we have the garden kneeling pad, LED plant light, and gardening kit are all going to be launched with summer reading because this year's summer reading theme is plant a seed, read. So we have lots of garden and growing things themed. The children's room has an LED tracing board. Felicity is going to come join the other American Girl dolls. We have a Yodo player.
Ooh.
For hula hoops, Samantha has generously donated. Those will join the lawn games for this during the summer. We have been searching for a VHS player. We find that we now have 2, and those will be joining really soon. And then last summer, we did a little pilot program where we offered sourdough and kombucha starters, and that was really successful. So we're going to be incorporating that into the Library of Things in a more permanent way. You might be wondering where we get these items, because as I mentioned, we're creating a budget, but that means that we don't currently have a budget for these items. So a lot of our items are purchased through grants, like the bird watching backpack was a grant, as I mentioned, and the lawn games. A lot of the outdoor kits in the children's room came through a grant. The owl, the owl was a big one. That was a big grant item. They're sourced through donations from community members. The adaptive kits and memory kits were both given to us. One of the VHS players was actually, they were both donations, one from a community member, one from a local business. Those we found through a social media ask. And then sometimes we purchase items if it's part of a larger program, such as the main big night kits. We've been circulating those in some form for a long time, maybe also for about a decade, and people expect them and ask them, and now we have a more formalized way of checking them out, which has been really popular. We currently have more than 50 items, and we're adding more every month. Here's just a couple of links. Let me click on these. So this is a map of all kinds of different Library of Things from libraries. We're on here. this is what our online wish list looks like. We haven't gotten anything from here, but we're still hoping. It's also a good way for us to keep track of what we're looking for in case
Is
something.
that on the website?
It's on our website, yep. And here's our website. Thank you, Suki, for that segue. So here's our new and improved Library of Things website. It has all the information about the Library of Things, about donations and acquisitions, borrowing guidelines, proper use and liability, loan periods, and then if you scroll down, you can see all of the different items and all the different categories that we offer, and you can just click on one to place a hold. So that's what we have. We're really excited about it. It's been going really well. It's too early to have any meaningful statistics, but anecdotally, it seems like it's going great. So if you have any questions for any of us, here.
I'm just fascinated. I've run into people who are older and say, I can't open the jar, you know, and we were joking about it, but it was like, where can you find this adaptive stuff? And so this is really helpful.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about
Yeah,
this.
and those items were donated to us by the Georgetown, no, was it the Georgetown? Or the-
Age
Yeah, the
friendly.
Georgetown Age Friendly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I split them up into 2 kits, so there's there's a lot of jar openers in there.
Because I had,
Yeah.
I mean, I reached out to AARP and it's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. So this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about technology, like do all those items come with like all the dongles and connectors that you need, and do you typically get them all back? Those little pieces that often get.
What did
And
you
in what
say?
shape?
Oh,
I'd love to know that.
For the most part, everything is inventoried on the item. That was something else that was part of this process, was making the inventory easier. Karen can speak to that too, because some of the children's items have a lot of pieces. So and it does, fall upon circ staff to actually inventory items when they come in. So it can be a lot of work. And even the chess kits, for instance, someone had to count and make sure every chess piece is there.
And those American Girl doll kits. I'm sure Karen can attest to. So many.
Yeah, I think the dolls actually began, I think in 2007 it was, where there was somebody who donated, was it 4 dolls or 7? I think it was 4 dolls to start with, and then a little bit later, somebody else donated a few more. So when I arrived about 6 years ago, however long ago, we had 7 dolls. And then, of course, as she said, we're now up to 15. One of them actually being a horse called Hollyhock, who was very pretty and very popular. And these and those tended to have a lot. And then Mary, she came on. Well, Katie ordered some more dolls, and then Mary ordered some more dolls, and also lots of accessories. But she and Gia recently went through and kind of de-accessorized a little bit, so there'd be a little bit less stuff in there. But we did recently now have Felicity as a donation, and they also donated 2 bags full of clothes and accessories that we now have to play with, so we could change things out or do whatever. So it is interesting going through these when they bring them back, and we do have to sometimes mark things missing and not check it in, and please ask them to please try to find it and bring it back. And then the backpacks were all grants from Mary Meeting Bay Trust from when Carol was here. I think they donated the money, and then one of her people chose the items, and there were 7 matching backpacks and book bags. They all had the same theme. Since then, the backpacks have been revamped a little. But those are also great fun. And all of these things were in the closet. So I worked with Katie to try to get them out so that they'd be more visible. And people started checking out those backpacks like crazy. The dolls, at least, those are still in the closet, but they've always had a sign or something. And then I had created a binder as well. So people at least had that to look through as well. But yeah, so all of them have been circling a lot better between that. And then, of course, the various iterations of American Girl Doll Clubs from even before Katie was here. And then Katie had one. And of course, now Gia has a very popular one where she focuses on 1 doll a month and has some great activities with it. So
I wanted to ask, could I ask, how long are things normally checked out for? Is there a standard period?
Yes.
It's either 1 or 3 weeks, depending on, if the owl goes out for 1 week. But some of the things like the main big night kits go out for 3 because that's a bigger project that people will use them for. So it's dependent on the item, but it's either 1 or 3.
Most of the children's room items are 1 week because of, number one, the popularity, but number two, also both us and the parents also love that there's less time for things to get lost.
Well, I can be Mr. Wet Blanket now and ask, what happens if things come back damaged or with pieces missing? Do you?
Well, so each item has a tag on it that has a list of the inventory, a QR code that people can scan to see the Minerva record that also has a list of the inventory and the price if it's damaged or
Okay.
lost beyond repair.
Okay.
Depending on the item, like if it's a small unimportant piece, we may be able to go on without it. If it's a cord, they would be charged for the replacement of the cord. If it's totally broken, they would be charged for that. Or if it's, we're not sure how long these VHS players that we just got donated are gonna last. But we do take items to our repair cafes, like items like that, like technology, to see if our experts can repair them. So it's dependent on the item, but we do treat it like the rest of our collection.
Okay.
The same way someone would be charged for losing a book or damaging a book.
Great.
And that would go into the decision of even adding it to a collection. That was something we talked about in
Yeah.
too, was what will guide the decision about to add something or not.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Allison?
I just had one more question. Suki thought I was kidding, but I'm not kidding. About car repair tools. Is that something that anybody? Happen to be speaking from personal
Yes,
experience. See?
So a couple things about tools. There is going to be a tool library in Bath. So we are staying away from
Okay.
tools like power tools, and we have a couple gardening tools. Small tools like that we're okay with. Power tools was a bridge we did not even want to cross and also don't need to
Okay.
because when the tool library starts, we're going to figure out a way to collaborate with them and get a pass with them added to our pass program.
Fantastic.
So
Okay.
everybody wins.
Okay.
And I've also heard from other libraries that there are other places in the community that do lend out automotive.
Well, I think
repair
Riley's
tools.
does. We're about to find
Yes,
out.
that's the one. Yeah, O'Reilly's does lend out. So I know the Curtis Library, they have like 1,200 Library of Things items, but they don't do car repair tools because someone else in the community is
okay,
already doing
gotcha.
that. So that's another thing that goes into the decision of what to add is not just who needs it, but who else is already
Right.
doing
Yeah.
this, or can someone else do it better?
Yeah.
example.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question.
This was great, thank you.
Fantastic. Well
you
done,
so
everybody.
much. Yeah.
Yes.
Kudos to all of you.
And I have Library of Things bookmarks up here if anybody wants.
Checking everything.
Okay.
We have to work for months on it, getting it all.
She just flop. That was cool.
So, I'm next, as we talked about, I'm gonna introduce Ryan Canteris. How do you pronounce it?
Correct, yes.
Aha, Ryan Canteris, who is our project architect with Simon's Architects, and I do have your. Is screen. So we can actually watch that. I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah.
Oh, Ashley had a
Yeah.
question.
Oh.
I couldn't see her comment. Thank you. What? See it.
Oh.
Cause I worked there all the time. Yeah, that's great.
Ashley Randall's online. She is in chat. She had a question.
She was handing them out before downstairs.
There it goes, it goes down on it. Okay,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, she's in, so she had put something.
so you are all set. Do you want a pointer?
Sure, I mean, is that, I think
Adam?
Sure.
is it better for me to stand up
Yeah.
and present?
Or sit, you can do either one. If you wanna sit, you can just do, the one.
Which is easier for you.
What
Well,
works for
I would
you.
love to be able to stand and just sort of see everyone.
Just don't trip.
Yeah.
Precarious up there.
And I understand there's someone remotely as well. Is there a camera somewhere?
Yeah, they see it.
Okay, well, then feel free to let me know if you can't hear me or.
Yeah.
That's a hard act to follow, like seeing all the exciting work that's happening in the Library of Things. I really appreciated seeing that presentation. We are also working with Curtis and have had some insight into their Library of Things, seen the press that is gathered. So just to start with introductions, I won't go around the whole room because there's so many of you all here. As we get into questions, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. I'll leave time at the end to go over things to some extent. But if you can just kind of give me a brief introduction when you do ask a question so I can kind of know how to, whom I'm talking to. So I'm a principal and partner at Simon's Architects. His name is Ryan Canteris. Thank you for the introduction. I am helping steward the project forward as it moves into subsequent phases. I was somewhat involved with Scott and the team, many of whom are still here working on it in the background, for the initial concept and feasibility work that it was done. And I really wanted to just sort of walk through the process a bit in today's presentation to sort of talk about, given where you are in the process, what the next steps might look like. Actually, let's see, is there a way I can forward with this?
Yeah, but this one, this.
Here we go. All right. So just as a way of a kind of an agenda or general way of organizing things, just wanted to sort of start out by talking about some patent library specific items, really just looking at what it may take to get into the next phases, what next steps might look like, and then sort of go through a broader picture of what the architectural design process is. And I gotta say, now I'm really worried I'm gonna trip on something.
Yeah.
I'm here with my colleague Michaela, who's also been working with Curtis Library as well on some of the work that they're doing around their circulation and very much on their ground floor entry area. And as we look at this, I believe this has been shared, right?
Yes,
So
it's in our packet.
I had prepared, it's a little bit of a compressed or aggressive schedule, but it's not a sprawling project. So I think that pressure to keep things concise is very beneficial. I will say this is a hypothetical, as if we were to be told to go today. This is showing durations, and there's nothing that would constrain these durations from moving one way to the other, moving slightly one way or the other than if they extend the completion of the design process would be further out. The markers that I have up on top are just to give some guidelines into how your fundraising is going and what makes sense to keep from getting too far out ahead of yourselves. And the other parts, the fact that I'm showing things in two colors is because I think there are sort of two parallel efforts that really at some point will benefit from being overlapping. So there's one effort in this taking the design ideas such as they are right now, further developing and refining them through an organized way. Another effort is to think about who are you likely to engage with to do the construction work and when you might bring them on board, because they can become assets to giving you pricing feedback and information before you get to the final documents, which become the sort of basis of the contract. So that was showing all the phases, I'm sorry, back, which I'm labeling as schematic design, design development, construction documentation, and then the actual construction process with breaks in duration for pricing exercises or budget estimation exercises in between each phase. I know some of you may have had experience working in construction projects and project management that has similar pieces, but I'm just going through step by step to make sure I kind of hit all of this. And again, anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out at any point or interject at any point. The item that would be the first authorization and the next step to get into would really be to get into a schematic design process. And I think there's a lot of ambiguity around what people understand to be, well, what is a conceptual design and what is a schematic design? And the conceptual design is usually an exercise that's done to test the feasibility and the goals of a project. And the schematic design is going to that next level and getting into well, how will that be built? And how big is this bread box that needs to happen here? And what do you need to do to connect those? So it's a process of refinement, which is the difference between each of these phases. As you get into further and further refinement, you have more information down on paper that people can give you cost feedback on, and more information that you can use to validate whether things are in alignment with your design goals, your desires for your organization. The sequence through the different phases is going to be echoed as we go forward. Sorry, there was a delay on that there. Just a little placeholder, which is an axonometric of your building cutting through on the ground floor, and showing it's drawn from the study that was done before that showed some of the areas of focus and design effort. To speak to the process, I thought it might be useful to sort of use case studies of some other projects to sort of illustrate some of this. So this is a project that's happening in parallel, but a little bit ahead of your project. So this is the Bridgeton Public Library in Bridgeton, Maine, which has completed its design process through the end of the design development phase. The building, it's smaller, but has the similarity of being historically significant and a building that is important to its community. With all of the challenges that can come from an older building, it has the higher level, which posed accessibility challenges, historic stacks. One differentiation is it had a very compromised children's space, which was the converted basement for children's space, which you have a lovely and ample amount of children's space in a good location. But this project, relatively recently, I mean, 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, there was an addition done to this project. But what has happened is the addition no longer serves their needs. So you can see in the upper image, the thing coming off the back was an addition that was done year 2000, something in that neighborhood. So one problem is the site is quite constrained, and in order to meet their current needs, they have to go to that same area. So the addition that was done sort of binds in the options or creates the framework that they have to work into. One of the first things that the other slide, I didn't mention why I had the other side up. One of the first things that was done as part of the feasibility study is to take an assessment of existing conditions. And it may have been done at a certain level. There may be some certain follow-up that's needed to understand, is there any issue with the glue underneath the carpeting, or how much do we understand about a very specific mechanical system? That is one of the initial steps of a feasibility and concept study. Another piece is to get into the spatial programming. And that effort happened and was reflected in some of the plans that were generated. What this is actually showing, and this is, I apologize, jumping from the Bridgeton Library to the Rice Public Library in Curie, which is another project that we had worked on. And it's actually showing a comparison between a study and a refined spatial program. We paired with the other architect that's listed up there, but prior to our involvement, they had done a study for a freestanding building and ended up deciding to preserve their historic building and do an addition. So you'll see there's some of these slight refinements where we were able to find a little bit of space. Some of that is normal. But you'll notice some of those sizes, which are just representations of the square footage required to do the project. Some of them are very different. And the ones that are very different, some of that comes from when you're working on a new site, you won't have the bounds of an existing building. And some of it comes from, there were some nice to haves. So some decisions were needed to be made to keep in alignment with the budget and the project. So these are background efforts that were included in the conceptual and feasibility study for the effort that was done for this building. This is in Bridgeton, the sort of next step really does become this like very conceptual design iteration. You want to go through design iterations quickly to study the adjacency and the flow of how projects work. So this was just a design diagram, a process drawing that helped inform where the final design landed. And from that, you often get this clarity of organization. There's a really architect-y term, people like talking about per-T diagrams, which is really diagrams that are almost become guiding principles for the design as the design evolves. What is it that you are trying to achieve and express with the design? This I would just say is a kind of preliminary adjacency and flow diagram. But we took the concept work to being able to do these kind of quick iterations of looking at, well, how can we meet the programmatic needs in a few different configurations? So we were looking at these three options. Through this concept work, we then moved on to a schematic design phase, which really was locking one of those options down and then further evolving it. So this was really in the schematic phase. We started looking at some of the things that were some of the larger programmatic elements we might have gotten into, or we did get into a real level of detail of how does the layout work within it? Is this big important room the right size? So we do those sort of validation, those exercises of validation. And then we started studying how the massing and volumes of the building may come together. And you can see it's at a simpler level than what the final design would be, but it was to be able to get all the pieces to the right design and right configuration. So this is like a representative work from the schematic. I actually wouldn't say this was the end of the schematic design effort. We got to the end of the schematic design effort, and we are often, it's frequent at that point that people will ask us, can you help create some visualization? Help with our community engagement, help with our fundraising. And this is showing a couple different phases of that. And as you get further in the process, you're better able to do higher and higher realistic representations or more evolved representations of the project. But we, at different times, both of these were used as parts of presentation materials at different points in the process for this organization. From the end of schematic design, you're really honing in schematic design to get the building layout worked out. There may be some door swings or some small pieces that you're still evolving at that. You move into a design development level. And in the design development level, you are really working in how much of this material exists, how much of this material exists. So in schematic, where the breadbox size may be validated and correct, and you're thinking about the alignment to the design goals, in design, you're really taking on what is the character and how are you achieving all of that. So at the end of a schematic design effort, you may have a narrative from a structural engineer and a mechanical engineer, but you won't have system designed. At the end of the design development, you'll have those systems designed with all of the sort of typical things necessary to describe those systems down on paper, such that at the end of the design development, you can get much more accurate pricing information than you can anywhere earlier in the process. And generally, by the time you're at the end of the design development phase, everything is settled down, like the layout is done, and you're at a place where you have incorporated all of the life safety, building code issues in such a way that you can often begin your approvals and permitting process. And then moving forward into the final phase, which is the construction documentation phase, you're basically finishing the recipe. The architecture in the end, this documenting side of architecture, is you're creating the instructions for someone to know how to be able to build the building. And you're starting out with broader paint strokes, brush strokes, and you're refining it and you're refining it. So this final phase is getting all of the mechanical systems, structural systems, and construction details to a level that someone can then go forward and know how to make the building. And it is a part of the design process as well, because you are really trying to create the pathway or the roadmap to an achievable project. So you're trying to take this idea that may have started with a couple of markers and a charrette and community session to say, this is how the building might flow and how it might all come together to become instructions that someone can then give you a price to be able to build and have a real building that meets those goals. There's in this phase, every decision that needs to be made has to be made, and every detail that needs to be detailed is detailed. So this is when we really have to produce all of the conditions that need to be described have to be described. From that, Then you would go into a construction phase and the design team would stay with you through that. The design team in the construction phase takes on a construction or contract administration phase. In the contract documents phase, you create all the drawings. You also create a giant book, a project manual or specification that has all the written requirements. And during construction, the design team will be there for regular meetings. We often find bi-weekly owner and contractor meetings is a good schedule for keeping on top of things. We would be available to answer questions beyond that, but there's a formal process for taking interpretations of the contract documents to help make sure things keep moving forward as questions come up from the contractor. Contractor is required to submit shop drawings for things that are being fabricated and documentation of everything that they're buying to put the building together. And that would actually come back to the design team to verify, yep, they bought the right windows, or yep, they bought the right carpet, because you don't want to show up and have the wrong windows lead to a room with the wrong carpet in it. And this is up at, I did jump again from the Bridgeton project, which was only through design development, to the Jessup project, which is actually the Jessup Memorial Library in Bar Harbor, which this is a significant addition. It's near the same size of the existing building that is currently in the latter phases of construction. So that was my, as fast as I possibly could, talk through the details of the design process. I really do hope people have questions that I can help bring a little bit more clarity to.
Can you just speak quickly about the building task force committee?
Yes.
And the importance or why you feel it's important and what that committee would do?
Yes, and maybe if I can just figure out how to.
What do you need to do?
I was going to go back to the schedule. That would be a good slide to have up. So just to get back to one of the first slides.
Oh, yeah, just go back to.
The specific question, I think, is really about, what does the interface with the library as an organization look like?
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell by everything this library does and the presentation that I saw before that you have an engaged board and that you're able to achieve a lot. This is a lot of people to get into a room with the regularity to go over every detailed question that would come up to go through the design process. So Leslie, you and I have had some conversations about having a advisory group or a subcommittee of this group, which maybe is people who are just on this group, or maybe you actually reach out to potential community partners who would be added assets to that to be able to be in the position to interface more directly with the architect in the beginning and then the architect and the contractor as you go further into the process. It would just be, we often find this isn't an atypical size for a board for a project like this. We'll often find that there'll be a subcommittee of 4 to 6 people that is attending meetings more regularly and can be there a little bit more day to day, can be put in a position to understand there are some things that subcommittee can probably just answer. And then there are things where that subcommittee will say, we will need to go to the larger group to have a conversation about that. But just as a way of creating a more streamlined process and sort of facilitating a process that will be less bound by the challenges of trying to find a spot on 17 people's schedule where things can line up as regularly. I think that's generally the conversation we were having.
Yeah, and also the types of, we're looking, you talked about the skill sets that we were kind of looking for people on this task force or committee. We talked a little bit about that.
I think I nominated you.
Yeah, well, right, but I mean, you had mentioned,
fundamentally, you need someone who knows your operation inside and out. That's really what I was speaking to there. I don't know among the board if there's folks who have had experience with this kind of work before. That can be of an asset. If there is not, there may be people in your slightly more extended community that have a construction awareness or a fundraising or community engagement awareness that would be valuable to bring into that that subgroup or subcommittee or advisory group that I was talking about. I'm presuming to make decisions for anyone. I'm just sort of saying suggestions that we have seen on any number of other projects that we've been on. And the quasi municipal nature of many libraries also further broadens that, where it's not uncommon for there to be representation from a town or city council or city or town government also there. You know, that may not be applicable here, but that is another common piece to actually have to navigate as you go through design.
And I just
Ryan,
want to.
if I could jump in on this,
Please.
I'm John Zittel, I'm on the board and I'm a member of our Building and Tech Committee. For the benefit of the rest of the board who may not have absorbed every word in our committee report, we talked about this at some length at our last meeting. And we were fully supportive of the idea of the board forming a committee of this sort, something like 4 to 6 people, anticipating meeting roughly bi-weekly. A whole mix of skills are desirable. The kinds of, see if I can find it in my notes here, the kinds of things we talked about were ideally bringing in people with expertise in construction, project management, of course, in library operations, and the financing aspects of it, the community outreach of it, and even city operations. It may not be appropriate to have a city staff member on the committee, but we should solicit the city early on how they would like to be at the table and how they would like to participate in keeping those lines of communication open. What we saw as almost immediate tasking for the committee would be, first of all, tasking them to refine for themselves their charter and the task that they'd be asked to undertake. They should consider early on how we want to consider the overall management of the project. How would we like to consider bringing in some sort of a professional owner's representative and or construction manager as the project goes forward? That's not an immediate issue, but it would be something that we would need to consider early. And the committee would also need to address some of the planning issues that have already been identified. There's things I heard you mention, Ryan, things like the need to do a hazmat survey, the need to refine the budget. We have an ongoing question of resolving with the city the demarcation of the property lines and responsibilities. So there are a whole set of issues there. So sorry for
no, that's very helpful.
But that kind of lets you know what our view of it was from our committee.
And then I just have one thing that we talked about was the timing of this committee being formed. You felt that, I think when I remember our discussion, you thought it was imperative that we do that right away, even before we get going with the schematics.
Ideally.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure that was the board understood that it's kind of the next step.
That's well, ideally, the schematic would start with the kickoff meeting, and the majority or all of those folks who were filling those roles would be at the very first meeting, would be at that kickoff. And I appreciate the clarity. These are some items that we have talked about before as you went through the who the members might be and some of the tasks that are some of the first tasks. And I appreciated the clarity of assessing the materials within the building, and you were mentioning the demarcation of property boundaries with the city. I do think we've found that the city had some site survey information was useful, but in that same effort, just making sure that you have things located and all of the things that would go along with having the survey information that would be needed if there was any outside work. At the entry, you had some work done there recently, and it seems like you may get lucky, but you may need to ask that survey crew to come back and shoot a couple more things, establish a couple more elevations or benchmarks.
Sure. And a couple questions if I could from the formal proposal and not being someone well versed in this subject. My question was, what does quote the construction manager at risk delivery method mean in practice? In contrast to other methods, is the CM construction manager independent of Simons Associates? And how would such a manager and Simons relate or work together?
It's a great question. In a subtlety, there was reference to owner's project manager. And you had also mentioned a construction manager there, and those aren't always the same thing. To the extent relative to delivery methods that are mentioned in our proposal, that assumption, the assumption was that rather than hiring a general contractor after everything is done, you would engage with the contractor for the construction of your building as a construction manager, which means you would engage them for pre-construction services, which essentially is during the design phases, asking them to participate in some of the meetings, offer real-time review about constructability issues, but also potentially take on the responsibility for doing the mid-design cost estimation. So in that process, if they do that once or twice as iterations of budgeting or project estimation, the end of the design process ends with them producing what I labeled up here, and I apologize for not writing it out, a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price. So you're essentially getting the contractor to make themselves available before all the documents are done, and then they can help advise on that process as you're going through it, as opposed to a more traditional design, bid, build scenario, which was the scenario where without any consultation with the contractor, we draw everything. And then you put it out on the street and you ask a bunch of people to give you their best guess as to what it was going to cost. And then you try to decide usually the lowest bidder to go forward. So it's basically engaging with the contractor to have a role in the pre-construction, so actually have them there during design. But in the end of the day, the estimate that they put up at the end of the documentation, construction documentation phase is every bit the same as the bid you would get from a general contractor in a traditional bid, design, bid, build process. So that language, guaranteed maximum price, is just sort of a different framing or a different language
to the fence line.
Does that make sense?
If I could, Carl, I would just say that puts the exclamation point on why it's important to form this task force or committee. Because
my drinks in your cup holders, be careful.
Decisions and choices that are going to have to be made here. Researching those choices, understanding the pros and cons, understanding how we would like to approach the project is going to take more time and effort than we can devote in a few minutes in a meeting like this. So that a committee like that is really going to have to take those kinds of questions on. And
she was annoyed about something at her game last night, and she's like, even Hunter agreed with me. I was like, no, it was about, I think she said when it was like the pickle or something, the catcher like got in the yeah. She was very mad, and she thought it was very important that I know that you agree with her.
We'll just mute her in the upper right. Hover over her, see where it says mute? Yeah, if you do that, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Should be able to mute. There you go. Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, okay. Do you need the slides back? I'm happy to put them back.
Sure, if anyone wants me to go through.
Yeah, it just, a couple of thoughts come to mind, and I would say that the committee, and whether you hire a manager or you engage a contractor that does this task, I think that's my recent experience with the Front and Elm Street project with the city of Bath and the fire station. I don't remember the numbers for the fire station, but the story was similar, where we went through this design and architecture stuff and the numbers, and then we budgeted and approved $1.2 million, go ahead, put it out to bid for the Front and Elm, and the lowest bid came back at $3 million. So engaging and getting this type of feedback and back and forth early on can save a lot of time and not lead to, oh God, what do we do? You know, so I just think that with all the moving target of construction of any type, building material prices changing daily, other things that having a process like this can save a lot of time and aggravation and save a lot of embarrassing questions when you've budgeted 1.2 million for something that now costs 3 million. And like I said, the story for the fire station was not quite as dramatic in terms of it wasn't more than 2.5, but it was enough that like, oh, we didn't ask the right person early enough.
Right questions, right.
I just want to add one thing. This, if you were here on the board or remember when we did our renovation, the first floor teen space and the reference area, that's exactly the process. We got the construction manager. We selected the contractors, the construction companies that we wanted to work with and had them come in and meet with us and do an interview, which we would do with this small group and tell us how we would work together and so that was how we made our choice. It didn't bind us to the final using them for construction, but with the understanding, so that worked very well because we were able to really accomplish a lot in that design process with them. For example, we used Wright Ryan and they did a lot of no work early on that helped with the designs in the teen space, like the pilot house. That was all planned even before we got to construction drawings. So we've used that model and it's worked really well.
And they ultimately did the construction.
Go ahead.
Did they ultimately do the construction as well?
They ultimately did the construction, yes.
If I can offer a little bit more on this, because what I've seen many organizations do is a pre-qualified competitive selection process for a construction manager. Sometimes that happens in the midst of schematic design. Sometimes someone isn't brought on until some point early on in the design development process. Letting that slip too far, you have diminishing returns for how much value you get from having someone involved early on. And that process of arriving at a short list of qualified firms and then asking them to produce proposals to share with you is one they will all be familiar with doing. And increasingly, it is quite common. The proposals will give their best understanding of your project, the cost, and what their fee percentage would be. It won't give you necessarily a construction cost number because it's too soon to do that, but it'll give you everything they can. What they will often do is they'll often highlight, this is what our pre-construction service is, so our support during design. This is what our support during design would cost if you do not end up going forward with us. And then you won't see that as an additional cost if you do end up going forward to us. So they can structure it any number of ways, and you can give them guidance to say, let us know what those service cost and treat it as a fee for service. But it's not uncommon for it to be a fee that they provide in service for the larger contract of the construction. However, if they don't get it and someone has spent 9 months biweekly in meetings with you, they need to have some coverage. It's a process that has worked well, just to speak to the point of end up on the other side of a bid and have all the bids come in as twice as much. You won't be there because the people who will be putting that number together will have been in all the meetings before, will have had some preliminary. It avoids that risk.
Right, that's why I'm saying I think this is a good idea.
Am I correct in this diagram showing us that whole process we've described, the committee and the choosing of a manager, take place within 8 weeks?
There's a little bit of a compression happening on all of these. I mean, it used to be that you would have 4 months for every phase and you'd have all this time. And then it's just regularly people have been pressing back on the durations. I do not know enough about the structuring of your funding or your specifics of your management to know if a construction start date is a hard limit. One thing that you could easily do, if there's no reason to say the construction start date needs to be right here, is you could adjust the durations. And the design development in 2 weeks, there's a lot of work that has to, or in 2 months, there's a lot of work that has to happen there. The work that needs to happen for schematic design, 8 to 10 weeks is pretty comfortable. But if there are going to be lags where for 2 weeks everyone is really focused on review of construction manager submittals or these procedural pieces, my suggestion probably would be why don't we not start off with a race that we can't win and stretch that first phase out a little bit. Again, this was not a total vacuum, but this was put together to try to sort of map towards what seemed like an efficient schedule for what is trying to be a very focused series of interventions, not be a full sprawling renovation of the building, but a little bit bigger than I feel comfortable saying surgical, but a very intentional focus.
Can I ask another question? You didn't talk, with the exception of this task force, you didn't talk a lot about communications back and forth. And one thing that's on my mind and came up in our building and tech committee is we're just, as you described, we're just getting to the end of this concept phase and we're about to start the schematic design phase. By mutual agreement with your firm, we didn't really try to repeatedly update and revise and evolve the concept drawings. But over the last couple of months, those drawings have been shown to a very wide audience, to stakeholders of the library, to potential donors, to staff, to others. And I presume a lot of comments have come out of that. It would seem to me that this end point, the end of the concept design phase and the start of the schematic phase would be an appropriate time to snap a line and say, let's pull that package together. Those concepts, drawings, whatever inputs we got, whatever decisions have been made based on those inputs of which ones we want you to consider, which ones we don't want you to consider. How does that need to be pulled together into a clear package that everyone understands and everybody agrees that that's the baseline that you're starting from?
This is a really important question. Thank you. I mean, there's the communication. You can't talk about communication enough, right? So the communication within the committee is really important. The communication within the design team and ownership team. There will be regular meetings. There will be meeting minutes. There'll be a whole process in place with the designated point of contact. The communication with the public. We have clients that very much will do a study and not let that go too broadly or too publicly, because they know that at the end of those studies, you learn a lot. And you open the study up when you're about to go forward to the next phase, and you almost take a step backwards and say, what did we really learn? What is exactly working? What is exactly the right size? How do we finalize this to a point where we can put it into a very thoroughly vetted and agreed upon design direction? So we often see that happen at the end of schematic design, is when people are a little bit more comfortable with going very widely public with something. I think that it's just a messaging piece. If it's already out there, to say, this was the concept, that step led us to this, and this is where we are. And hopefully there isn't a huge distance, or any evolutions that have happened have been ones that are very clearly justifiable by the goals that were identified in the concept stage and how you are actually realizing them at the end of schematic design. I think this is an important question, and I think not having been terribly involved with the concept design that is put together, you have fairly exceptionally involved renderings. Like the visualization was taken really well and really strongly. But I don't know if all of the decisions that led to that had all the pause and feedback loops. Certainly there's time and ability to take those feedback loops and refine it into design going forward. But there's a temptation when you have such strong visualization, be like, oh, I can't wait to share this with everybody. I want to show people what we're thinking. And there's always that risk of, well, this is what we're thinking, but we've had to dial it back a little bit, or we've had to change it a little bit this way or that way. So I think when you really do make I don't know exactly, but very often there'll be a capital campaign and there'll be a kickoff, like a proper fundraising campaign. It's making sure all the decisions that are being put out at that point are clear. So that's.
And so we could talk about that because we have raised already $3.7 million to the 5 million campaign. So we are already in the thick of it. This isn't the beginning of a camp. So
I was just gonna chime in too. Leslie has been so careful in her wording in each of our quiet phase meetings have been maybe around 100 potential lead donors to date, around 70 of whom have committed. But she has been crystal clear. I've been next to her every time about it being concept work, changes would be happening, things like that. So I'm pretty confident that we've laid the groundwork for things to potentially change.
yeah, I feel so too, because I've really talked about it in more higher level, like these are the themes. We gather, we know we need gathering spaces. We know, but I've been every single meeting, I've been really clear that it's concept work and that it's not the final design. And so I think messaging is important, but I think we can absolutely, I think we've had no donors that have been, I feel so strongly that this has to be right here. We've gotten very general excitement, but nobody has been.
But you have gotten comments back, and those comments
We have them all written
need
down.
to be vetted and decide which ones you would
I
like
might-
to follow up on.
I might push back on that a little bit, John. I think almost probably vast majority of our meetings have not given specific feedback because we haven't really sought it, with the exception being in the feasibility stage, which has been complete for about over a year now. So I think we have very minimal feedback. I wouldn't worry about too much coming from the campaign fundraising side. I think comments have just been congratulatory and excited. And our meeting with you, for example, had some good feedback, but you were the exception rather than the norm, given your expertise, I think.
What else could you say?
So don't worry, there's not going to be a lot coming. A lot of things that will, rock the boat coming from the campaign side is what I was trying to say.
And also Rebecca's been really careful of writing notes from every meeting, so if there is any input, we have that information that we can pull and look at.
But I'm arguing that a step beyond just we have that information is getting it assembled, get a clear package that we're in agreement with you. You understand what we've heard. This is what we'd like you to start with as the baseline to begin the schematic design phase.
Absolutely.
It just seems to me to be
Absolutely.
an exercise.
Absolutely welcome it. I mean, as designers, we are trained in you create and help bring to light and visualize things, but you really are working to generate that feedback and onboard and let feedback inform a process. So you are also trained to look at what are the essential things that are adding value that people are reacting to and what has been created. And it becomes a guide to get you to the next step. So I mean, we really get this drilled into us through the courses of our education and our career that, you have to be able to onboard criticism and feedback and figure out ways to do it in such a way that adds value and keeps things moving forward in a positive direction. So I welcome it.
That helps a lot. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah.
Questions? No? I should ask this to be clear, what actions or decisions are top priority right now for the board related to do?
I think that the two things that are important to me are the beginning to form this committee, this task force, and also being able to move forward with the schematic part of the project. So one of the things I sent you was their whole proposal And I talked with Ryan about, can we just like sign a contract just for the schematics? Because if you can see on the timeline, before we get to the construction drawings, they're recommending we've raised 80% of the project cost. So we don't know how long that's gonna take us. We're certainly not there now. We don't know we're gonna know a little bit better about the costs once we have the schematics and then design work. So about what the true cost of the project's going to be. So my hope today would be that we can start to move forward with the task force and that we get board approval to sign to do the schematics, which we know the cost of. It's broken down in that overall proposal that Simon's Architects has given, so that we can move forward. And we know that the budget for the campaign will need to be adjusted, but we have money set aside for the overall project. So that's what I think would be appropriate.
I have some from the Building and Tech Committee. Our two recommendations to the board were very similar. You'll see in our minutes from our last meeting to what Leslie just said. Absolutely form that committee, task force, whatever.
Yes.
Second is the other point that I raised with Ryan, which is as a clear marker for the end of the concept phase and the beginning of the schematic design phase, assemble a package as a product from the concept phase that can be communicated to everyone on the board and staff, everyone that cares, and use that as a baseline for starting the schematic design phase that Leslie is so eloquent about the need to get moving.
It could be an executive summary. It could, however we want to put it together, just all of the work that's come to that point.
Right.
I was going to offer two very quick things. And one was to say, in the proposal that was shared, there was stipulation about there were some assumptions about the duration of the schematic design. And we are in a position to be flexible about that. I think I previously had spoken about you could sign for just any portion of the work, but if you need, I can send you something that'll say, let's not bind ourselves to the 2 months. Let's say that this phase can be extended. I'd like to give a little thought into what that is, but just to show that flexibility, that might be helpful. And the other thing was the price markers was really just it's worth taking a quick moment to say, there was one in the beginning to say, really authorizing us to afford, you should be in a position where you see the trajectory, you have maybe half the money in hand. The reason for the one that I'm suggesting, this like 80% funding target before going into construction documents, is that is really not the last point, but that is the last best point to be able to make meaningful adjustments for value.
Yeah.
So if you need to say something gets a little bit smaller, or you need to say change something meaningful, it's easier to change big things the further back you are, and harder to change big things the further along the process you are. So that was the driver for that. Okay.
So, at this point, are there any more questions for Ryan? Okay, thank you.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Very happy to do this. Very happy to.
Okay, well, it was big. Certainly answered a lot of questions, clarified the process more. Most of us are not very experienced in this kind of subject. Most of us, very few exceptions, as you can tell.
I know I gave a lot of information quickly, and sometimes it takes time to process. If any questions do rise, just forward them over to us and we'll do what we can to address them.
Yeah, send them to me, I'll get them to Ryan and I get answers.
It was very nice meeting all of you. I'm sorry I wasn't here to do an introduction earlier. I know there was a lot to get through.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Michaela, for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care.
Yeah, well, it's.
Or lights.
Yeah, you get it?
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, this one's off. Let's hold it.
Oh.
Yes. No. The context.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Night.
Thank you.
So, Michael, do you want to mention to the group what you just mentioned to me? Yes, or, well, come on, yeah.
I said I decided to serve on the committee also. My father was a general contractor.
Did not know
My
that.
41 years of practice, I worked for a developer, did all this. So.
How handy.
Okay.
That.
You signing up?
Are you on?
Signing up.
On the committee.
Yay, thank you, Michael. And I will of course also be as on the committee as well.
Yeah,
For
so
sure.
what do you think in terms of a motion here? You're looking at 2 points, is that? Okay. Would we move forward to hiring them for the schematic design?
Could you speak up a little bit?
You look forward to hiring them for the schematic design.
Yes,
And what was the second point?
the task force or the committee.
Form the task force. Our committees.
Okay. Let's do a motion first about, let's say about, well, either one we could do, but agreeing that we form the task force or special committee, whatever you want to phrase, to work on the project, call it construction.
Second.
Seconded?
He made the motion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Seconded? All in favor? Like it's unanimous? Just done that. And the second motion, Michael, can you repeat that, please?
That was, I'm sorry.
To engage Simons
To engage,
schematic.
Simons and Associates.
Associates, for the schematic design.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So is that going to be, because we're just gonna say that one particular phase right now? I mean, this is laid out here all the way
Yeah.
through.
Right.
And he seemed that he's fully.
He's happy, he's
One
happy
step
to
at a
go
time,
that way.
because we don't know, we have to get to the 80%, so
Before we
God
can go
forbid
further.
something happens.
No, I just
We don't
wanna
want
make
to
sure.
sign on all of them, okay?
We're not talking about money. We're talking about just engaging.
Well, the money for the schematics,
Right, which is outlined in the proposal.
which is 40,
That was in the material.
yeah, 40,000, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure it's.
Yeah, so that's all we'll be committing to at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yep, see it.
Okay, there's a motion to hire Simon Associates to do the schematics for this phase of this project.
voting.
You're voting.
Was it second?
Yes.
All
Seconded.
Seconded by Eileen.
all in favor? All in favor?
Just rushing us to the vote here.
Okay,
And Ashley also said yes.
okay, great.
Yes, oh, good. Yes.
You can,
Okay.
Leslie,
Okay,
you can sign me up as a member from the building and tech.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
John. Thank you, Michael. It's very.
all-star team already.
Right, so you have 3. Okay, all right, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch, okay.
We talk about this, but we can also, I'm sorry, did you,
So who's on the committee so far? I heard three, you said
John,
three?
Michael, and Leslie.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of meetings.
The other thing is, and again, this to be an announcement is, I would say this, to go out to the incorporators. This is be a chance and they ask about what they can do to help the library. This is something very concrete.
I'll have a conversation and we'll come up with some language and we'll send out a notice and we could talk about. I have a couple of other names that have been given to me from members of the Building and Tech Committee, and so we putting together a list of some others, community members as well.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Rebecca. Thank you for your participation, Rebecca. During the presentation, it was good to do that. But let's have our capital campaign updates.
Well, it's a quick one, and Leslie spoiled it a tiny bit, but we're just about at 3.7 million. The total is in actuality 3.68. Since I spoke to you last month, we had 2 more gifts come in for a total of $26,000. We've made several more asks in the past month, so waiting to hear news on several gifts. We were all prepared to have quite an important meeting tomorrow afternoon, or Friday afternoon, I should say, with Bath Ironworks, but they've actually just bumped that to June 8th. So that's still on the horizon. And we also have a big conversation with First Federal coming up, as well as a few members of the community who've agreed to come in and talk about the campaign. So things are going really well. I'm not sure if this was said earlier. It was hard to hear some of the crosstalk while the Reimagine Spaces conversation was happening, but we're at, by my calculation, 77% of our goal. And I'm not sure whether the intention there is for cash in hand versus pledges, but 65% of that reported number is cash, and we also know that a significant pledge payment is on the way. So I think we are doing fairly well, and I know the finance committee will kind of parse that type of detail further. Does anyone have any questions about the campaign? It's exciting to see this getting even more real with Reimagine Spaces. I'm really eager to see the next step happen.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Is that
If,
you, Suki?
once we get the schematic, is then when we go public with that? Is that when we go to the big?
No, so great question. I am advising that we hold off on the public launch for as long as possible. Part of it will be based on dollars raised, so I want us to have at least 90% of our total committed before we go public.
Okay.
Other considerations include the really thoughtful and intentional cadence of Samantha's annual fundraising and where it makes sense to plug in a public campaign in a way that won't impact the annual operations fundraising for the library. So we're actually going to talk more about that over the summer. We know there's always a slowdown during the summer. A lot of potential donors don't want to come in and have this type of meeting during July and August. And so we do a lot of like planning and prep. And so part of that for Leslie, Samantha, Cookie, and I, and the campaign committee will be thinking more about firming up that public launch timeline. But it's at least 12 months out, I would say. Even if we hit 90% tomorrow, which how cool would that be? I would still want us to hold off.
Okay.
Leah, did you have a question too?
Yeah, I think with the donor meetings, you just sort of update with where things are at, like the fact that we're so close to, and some of that's been happening with schematic design, but still use the same visuals and.
Exactly. And then as we have more to share, we'll just incorporate those new visuals into the presentation and the materials. Even with our case brochure, for example, we are always careful to order a small amount so that when it's time to update different pieces and parts of that, we can, we're not overprinting. So it's a living, breathing thing, this campaign, and we're kind of ready for that. The other thing I love about this next stage is that when we do have schematic drawings and more information in hand, it's going to be really nice to sit back down with our lead donors who've already given and just share the joyful updates with them, and no agenda to be asking for anything, but for them to be able to see it happening is really exciting. So it's about to be a good enjoyable stretch, I think.
Questions more for Rebecca? All right, let's move on to the consent agenda.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm gonna pop off and go take care of my crazy kids. See you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Consent agenda, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Chris, second?
Yes.
Okay, Suki, all in favor? All right. Let's move on to the consent agenda. So just any comments or questions, clarifications that you want, we do need to repeat the substance. I had a comment, I wanted to say congratulations to everyone who worked on the ARPA projects. The resources that went through that, they were excellent projects that really addressed some needs work pods, the AV equipment, the upgraded accessibility entrance. Great stuff. And, you know, it was took longer, in some cases longer than we expected, but they're all really significant improvements. Congratulations to those who thought of it and then who executed. And I want to say, Hannah, keep the faith, stay the course on the poetry walk placards. Give up.
I spoke to her today when I finally got my email sorted out, I think, and I'm now seeing the updates that on my virtual desk for quite some time has been to going back to before my time on council and before Adam was codes officer, that Scott had marked up Bath's sign ordinance to make it recognize things like Black Lives Matter and the poetry and other things that are in that category that don't fit into very political and advertising, and update our ordinance to recognize the difference and allow things. So, you know, it's something that when Scott retired, he handed to me, and I haven't, it's one of those things that, oh, maybe next month I'll bring this to the Community Development Committee, but this has brought it to the top of the stack again.
That's good.
And I will try to but I will also perhaps mention to Adam directly or somebody else that we're very busy with vacant buildings and other things that are going on in the city, and we don't need to be taking down poetry signs. There's enough other stuff on his plate.
You know, we also have done story walks where that,
Right,
you know,
right.
so
So,
things like that, we would
You
love.
know, like I said, he wasn't wrong technically, but I was grumpy when I read that this morning and apologized, and I will see if I can get our ordinance updated before next April.
Thank you.
Is there anything else about the monthly staff reports people want to comment on? Committee reports, building and technology, gone over some of that already. In relation to that, Leslie, I wondered if there's still some EMC leftovers to be done before.
They are actually working on the change order to fix the problems with the upstairs history room and business office. So their Mac Air was here last week and they're gonna be here 3 days this week. I don't know if it's gonna get completed by then, but so we're wrapping, that's also now happening, so. But again, as I said, that's outside of the original contract.
Finance. I thought I saw a typo, Tommy, in the last sentence in section D, part 4, where it says we will prevent the revised budget to the board in April. Is that supposed to be, is that accurate, or is that a leftover sentence from a previous month?
Yes.
Leftover, okay. Okay, I thought, yeah. Okay. Friends? Governance? Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, was there a contribution?
I never received a governance.
No, that's what I was gonna just think of. I did not get the minutes done, but our time was spent continuing charter work, focus on the governance committee and building development committee.
Allison.
Tommy, I'm looking at the Georgetown meeting on the finance committee. Georgetown's town meeting is June 13th. Not May 14th. They do have a budget meeting.
Is on the third.
Yeah, that's their
That's the budget meeting.
and Georgetown's budget meeting is very important. It's
important.
almost, and this is quoting a Georgetown resident, it is almost more important than the town meeting itself.
Exactly.
That is where the sausage is made, if you will. And so that's why it was.
Well, then it should say Georgetown's budget.
What did it say? Does it say the
This
town
Georgetown's
meeting?
town meeting.
It's
scheduled
the
for May
budget meeting,
14th.
not the town meeting. Yeah. So that should be updated to reflect.
Okay.
Route 6 is the 11th. Yeah.
So. Policy and personnel.
We've done new business, we've got two.
Okay, right,
Policies to.
right. But in terms of the committee report,
Coming at the,
Just continue.
New business.
And personal policies.
then nothing more on the consent agenda. We'll move to the treasurer's report.
Right, I have the value of the endowment as of yesterday, 5/11, is $9,681,648, excuse me, $646.88. Don't have a whole lot else to add. Does anybody have any questions? Anything? Pretty plainly presented. Question, Carl?
No, that's okay. No. I don't, something. No, I don't. Okay. The development report?
I have a couple quick updates before we go into the presentation of the Y27 campaign development plan, not campaign plan, development plan. So annual fund as of today is $137,261.94 plus $2,986 in open pledges. That puts our total right now at $140,248.19. Which is just about $15,000 short of our goal, which hopefully we can close that gap in the coming weeks before we end our fiscal year on June 30th. Just a couple reminders for the board. The gift card calendar raffle is still going, and any tickets that you are trying to sell need to be sold and money returned to Samantha by the end of this month, May 30th. And we are, as you know, since I've been hassling all of you, setting up a couple sales events, two of which are this weekend for the Friends book sale, which Samantha just noted they may be trying to move the Friday to Sunday because of weather.
Yeah, so I just emailed Tucker to let me know and I'll let you know, but I strongly discouraged it. It's like you're under the gazebo, you're fine.
You can sort of traffic.
Yeah, I've already been advertising, so. We'll see, but I'll let you know when I know.
Thank you. Thanks.
And we are also doing the Brackets Market Lobby May 30th. And thank you to all of you who have volunteered to sit at that table and sell tickets. And I'm sure we will prevail. So
unless turn into something else.
On to the FY27 development plan. This is what we are proposing. We're going to review it here together and we are going to vote on it.
So is that one of the right? Is this the?
There's another this is
just the presentation
this is
version.
Like the Canva version of what you have in your document.
Yes.
So
we didn't want to get bogged down in all the
gotcha.
words. I tried to simplify the points.
Do you want me to do this part, Samantha?
If you want, I can chirp in or yeah, it's up to you.
So the focus for the coming year is, as we've already sort of experienced, as we are working on this capital campaign, our donors' attention is sort of being divided, if you will, and our capacity internally is also being stretched thin. So our primary role and goal of the annual fund for next year is not aggressive growth, but to keep things stable, keep our donors giving to us to both the annual fund, even if they've already given to the capital campaign. This development plan is designed to protect the annual fund, reduce donor attrition, and sustain long-term relationships while the campaign is underway. So the priority area number 1 is to grow and stabilize monthly giving. So some people sitting at this table are already page turner donors where you're just donating automatically every month. We want to increase those types of donors That helps to expand revenue, and it also helps to sort of offset pressure on the donors. They're not thinking about it anymore. It's just happening. So they're not feeling like they're being asked every 5 minutes for a donation. So this is going to be one of the primary goals, and the strategy is going to be approach. What is the strategy? Sorry.
Focus on that,
Focus on that. And if you want to go to the next slide, these are some examples of how this happens. We're going to try to convert last year, but not this year, donors and at-risk donors to monthly giving through soft invitations, email, direct mail, promote monthly giving consistently in all of our appeal communications, thank you letters and acknowledgements, reminding people you can just do this automatically and we'll stop bothering you. Encourage our existing monthly donors to maintain or modestly increase their gift rather than upgrade to one-time gifts. We're going to try to track this metric and hopefully hit our target of 45 to 50 age donors giving in FY27, which would hopefully be around $15,000. We've talked in the development committee a little bit about like maybe we give some sort of enticement like Maine Public does with like, you become a monthly donor, you can get a socks, right? Or a t-shirt or something like that. Because I know I'm motivated by those types of things. Yeah. I want that Maine Public radio hat, much as anyone. So anyway, so we're going to explore that a little bit. But this is our first priority for the next fiscal year plan.
For the record, I always want the Maine Public little tote bag.
Okay. Yeah, that was
They've
another
improved
idea
over
we
the
had.
years. The earlier ones were pretty.
And those picnic blankets.
Picnic blankets.
Exactly.
That was exactly what we said.
Two, I like.
We had, I love them. I have a whole trunk full.
And we've talked a lot about stewardship all throughout. Every year we talk about this, but it is key to improving our retention and satisfaction of our donors if we're staying in touch with them and not always asking for money, but just touch points. We're having an event coming up. We are, you might be interested in this.
We're asking them to volunteer for things too.
Sure. Yeah. Come to this event. You can volunteer for it and help us clean up, whatever. Samantha and staff are kindly going to try to put together some sort of elevator pitches, if you will, talking points, emails, clear follow-up guidance when these opportunities arise.
Perfect.
With your stewardies. Of course she
ready.
Yes. Here, please.
So as Samantha mentioned, she's pre-written some emails, talking points for trustees and volunteers to use. Creating a simple stewardship calendar with clear responsibilities and deadlines, prioritizing thank you calls, emails, and handwritten notes for, if you don't know what LiveBunt is, last year but not this year, and longstanding donors, and increasing, like I mentioned before, non-solicitation touch points. So, hey, we got this exciting program coming. You've just hit this milestone in, fundraising, et cetera. And standardized stewardship messaging to reinforce gratitude and reassure donors of the library's stability during the campaign.
Excellent.
So the target is 3 to 5 stewardship touch points throughout the year. And the third priority area is to retain our last year but not this year donors. Prevent last year's donors from lapsing by maintaining engagement, encouraging continued support at a comfortable level. And that is all of us, not just the development employees. So these donors will be identified early and prioritized for proactive stewardship, earlier outreach, and softer solicitations. And of course, monthly giving is going to be suggested as an option, so that they don't have to think about it.
I'm thinking, just so you get an idea of what I'm thinking, I've already kind of drafted it, but something will go out in the summer to everybody who's already given this year that just says, thank you for your gift. I might even do it before the end of the fiscal year and say, get your monthly page turner gift started right away. Then we'll start the fiscal year with hopefully their commitment. So it's on the plan.
As we mentioned, identifying them early and segment them for targeted outreach. Send earlier, softer appeals, emphasizing continuity, impact, and appreciation rather than urgency. Offer monthly giving, and implement proactive stewardship touches before solicitations, thank you notes, and impact emails. Donors love to hear your money has helped make this happen, and you know, Hannah and Samantha are so good at sort of pinpointing those things in the outreach. Monitoring Libent response rates throughout the year and adjust outreach as needed. So we're going to try to make sure that 85%.
Your last year's donors are the donors who are gonna give. You may get 1 to 5% of your gifts from Cybunts, but this, you know, that active donor, it's so important to keep them engaged.
Now is this the mailing that just went out with us writing on them?
Hasn't quite gone out, but this is the
Getting
last,
ready,
yeah,
that's the
this is the last spring
one
one
for
for
them,
this
yeah.
year, and then we'll start.
So
you
we'll
know.
track how much we
Mhm.
pick up this year from handwritten notes on it, all those letters.
Yeah, I've been
right?
trying to do that, yeah, so it made an impact from the first mailing, which we reported on development committee. And so we'll do again this year, just, you know, keep an eye if somebody's, you know, you'll know, cause you'll get that task. It says, your
Okay.
donor gave. Move forward? This
So
is the
yeah.
weight of it.
this kind of outlines where we see the $155,000 and $500 on top of that coming in from the spelling bees coming back with a vengeance in September, fall individual appeal, business appeal, both in the fall, Starry Night in December, calendar year end appeal, tax letters, periodical appeal, gift card calendar. All this should look very familiar to you. Spring business appeal, year-end appeal at the fiscal year-end, library giving day, phone-a-thon, and page turners is sort of an ongoing thing. So you can see if you want to refer back to this, you know, flag it in your, you know, your files on your computer. You know, the volunteer requirements and the notes will help you sort of decide.
Yeah, those are
which of
basically,
these-
if we don't have those, that thing won't move forward. The development office is very strained, so we really need all you kind of
Hands on deck.
hands on deck for this next, especially the next couple of years, you know, because I'm gonna be planning a kickoff party and all these other things. So just before we vote, I want you guys to digest this really well. It's in the longer, so you can really take your time with it. But my goal is the earlier the better. So if you see something that says like, oh, we need involvement in this event, let me know early, or the earlier the better, that I know you're engaged and committed to something, you know, then I can make my plans a lot, you know, I like to plan everything way in advance. So,
you know, we have, there's a person who's been in touch with us to try to help sell the gift card calendar tickets, and she's like, there's all these businesses in Woolwich that, you know, nobody's tapped them for, you know, business giving, and it's like, yeah, because, you know, we don't have enough people power to do it. So
sending a letter is
Yeah.
never gonna get a business to give.
she will be engaging with us, yes.
And, yeah,
Good.
Yes.
we've invited her to the Friends and the development committees.
Excellent.
Just someone who reached out, who saw the gift, she bought a ticket to the gift card calendar raffle.
It's like sparked her imagination. She's like,
A
run
million ideas.
which is great. That's what we need. We need people to have, you know, sort of.
And I had to kind of gently nudge her and say, well, we're kind of already like cemented in this year, but if you want to jump in, we're ready to do next year. So, yeah, I think just a couple of things to point out, just scheduling wise, you'll notice that the fiscal year end appeal, I bumped that up to March next year. What I'm finding now is I've had this mailing, you know, merged and ready to go, and 20 people have donated in that time period. So I've had to poll them. And so I think a little sooner, because people have it in their mindset, you know, who do give in the spring to give, you know, early. So I'm going to bump that up a little bit and
Do you
see
think
if that
the
helps.
Woolwich News has like prodded some people to?
We have had a couple of gifts. I actually had a Woolwich donor who was not a donor, who came in with two $250 gifts back to back. So, and I've had a gentleman who's approached me to do a peer-to-peer campaign here in Bath. Just someone who saw it happen and thought he could drum up some attention. I am looking for a matching gift. We think that's probably the best way to move forward with this. So a $5,000 matching gift for what he thinks he could raise $5,000. And this is all in as result is just Woolwich. So these people will hopefully continue to be engaged for next year. And then I just jumped the stewardship stuff, which is, y'all should be familiar with that, but.
So that just sort of breaks down, you know, who's getting letters, who's, you know, in charge of those letters or signing those letters.
I did make that one change on the cards. So we used to do
anytime a donor gave, you got a, you know, and they were a certain level, here's a card, do it in a couple weeks. I've decided to, instead of doing that all throughout the year, we would just isolate it onto a holiday card campaign. So everybody who's given pre-Christmas this year will get a, you know, we'll just do it during the November, December holidays. I'll actually get holiday cards probably, you know, something nice. And we'll do it that way. So you don't have, so you guys won't be giving cards throughout the year. So we'll just do it once a year for the whole year's giving for people who need it, and they'll just get a holiday card.
About the big donors, I would.
Well, they'll already get those other touch points, and the card is always additional. So they get the thank you, then you'll say it was somebody you're with, right? I would task you, here's an email link, which you could thank this person. And then at the end of the year, they'll get that additional card that just says, hey, we still remember you gave that big gift.
Yeah, the cards are never the first thank you.
Okay.
Everybody gets a thank you automatically.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then the phone calls at the bottom, which I translate that to email myself when I'm, but nobody picks up the phone. Even my own children don't pick up the phone when I call.
So true.
And then there's general stewardship language over there on the sort of the left side of the screen. And everybody should be familiar with this now, that you're getting those notifications from little green light. And then you decide how and when you want to reach out to that donor. Sometimes, you know, I'm going to run into them on the street when I'm walking the dog. In Suki's case, things like that. So, you know, try to pay attention. It's hard sometimes. I get, you know, 8,000 little green light emails, but I tend to, like, you know, every other week or whatever, try to just sort of regroup and get them all in one place. So it's a strategy some other people might employ as well. And again, inviting people to programs or events. Samantha's going to provide you with some language to help you sort of talk through that if you're struggling. So, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
That's it. That's our that's kind of the definition of success, which sums up everything we just said. Keep those donors during the campaign. That's really our big focus, is to not, because we are seeing that happen, campaign donors not making their annual fund gifts.
Yeah, right.
Is a trend this year. It's going to get more and more so as we start to go down to those smaller one-on-one gifts, because those are the folks who give to our annual fund. So yeah, it's hard to ask them to give 25,000 and then say, oh, don't forget to give your 500, you know, and they go, oh, I already gave. So really that's going to be the focus for next year.
So I think you're looking for a motion to approve proposed.
I think we're going to do that next month. This was more just the walkthrough, and then I want you guys to just go back and really look at the full plan and make sure everything makes sense, because it's an all hands on deck kind of thing this year.
In that case, the photothon, I think I was.
I know, right?
But I'm just wondering about it now. I'm wondering about it now because the last time that I did that was probably 25 years ago, and people don't pick up their phones
They don't.
anymore.
I know. So what I've done is I've created text, you know, talking points, and I've created, if you get their voicemail, which is probably what's going to happen. But they hit my emails already. So I'm hoping that, like, we do a phone-a-thon, maybe we don't talk to anybody, but we leave them a message, and that just gets them to go, right, I meant to make my gift. And, you know, unfortunately, we don't get the touch point really of talking to them, but I'm hoping it will do that. And I think we did put that on the schedule for next year, but I think that'll be something that we haven't seen it go through yet. So we're not sure how successful that's going to be. So we may have to weigh in on that afterwards. You know, all the spring event activities are projections that are based on nothing right now.
And I think you also have to give some thought as to how the number comes across on people's phones.
Mhm.
At library.
I think it's public service right now.
It used to be City of Bath. That was.
I know, I remember that.
But we'll.
Yeah, they might pick up if it was City of Bath.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no,
I'm not gonna tell you that.
That doesn't say that.
Donors to you.
All right. So yeah, and so we'll come back in June and we'll be ready for a vote, hopefully. But the point being, you have a month now, so give me all of your input, your suggestions. If you see something that you're like, that seems like too much work, or, you know, have you thought about, pass it along, because this is a living document right up until you vote in June.
And then we're all committed to it, all of us.
I'm thinking, it's a direct deposit.
They can do anything. They can do Google Pay, credit card, or an EFT. So we do have, which is an electronic funds transfer. So we do have a lot of folks who just go to Bass Savings and say, I'd like you to transfer $25 a month. I will say that's not my favorite because on the bank statement, it is not clear often who it came from. And so I have to know who gives 25, who gives 100. And right now it's manageable, but I would prefer Google Pay, credit card, or a check from Bass Savings. Just,
Even though the credit card costs money.
yeah, I mean,
You do have
It
an
all
option to
costs
cover
money.
that cost
Yep.
when you
Oh,
make your
perfect.
donation, so.
Yeah.
and
okay.
many of our
Yeah.
monthly donors
Yeah.
actually do that extra 3%. So, you know, you get the, and it does cover. So it is quite helpful when they do that, but yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, next, town and area school activities, we know it, and so that will cover. We've gotten, you know, put in the record, the Woolwich, at the town meeting, they declined to fund the library. And, but due to the, let's say, the irregular process that was used,
Perfect.
the Woolwich, the select board, the town has decided that they will hold a special meeting to revisit the issue of library funding. Tommy says it'll probably be in mid to late June, is that correct? So Leslie's done, you've seen it, a general, sort of a somewhat generic, but a general notice message to the Woolwich cardholders about the situation. I think what remains to be seen as well is if we want to formulate as the meeting date especially draws closer, a more targeted and complete advocacy statement for the library, I would say, to the cardholders, reiterating the points that have been made about how much the community of Woolwich benefits from having the library. And we have ample statistics and all sorts of figures to do that. As those are my thoughts about doing it, rather than in terms of the timing. I don't know what other people think about doing that.
How are they about non-residents speaking at their town meeting? How are they about non-residents speaking at their town
Have
meeting?
to get permission. They need permission.
So, yes, so they
It's
get,
not
right.
ever been a problem, right? Except in
Yeah.
Richmond, but that had nothing to do with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm not, honest to God.
I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to make sure that we get permission before this
We will,
presentation.
yes, I was at the select board meeting last week and made sure I understood the process for that happening, so yes.
Who is permitted to speak then? As far as us, our group goes.
So for me, it's, so what I understand from that meeting is if you're David King suggests that I speak to the moderator, let them know who I am, and then they do a vote at the beginning. So the town has to vote to let me speak.
Oh.
But it can be anybody that's not a resident, that's representing the library. We would let them know at the beginning of the meeting.
What about Jack as a resident?
So that is what this came up at the meeting, and Allison and Tommy were there.
I was not there.
You were not there, excuse me, thank you for that clarification. Tommy was there, and that discussion came up about whether, because Elizabeth is also a Woolwich resident.
Right.
Whether a library representative that also lives in Woolwich, there was a discussion about it either have to be disclosed because they get a paycheck from the library.
Right.
That I guess, and correct me, Tommy, if I'm wrong, that the town would have to decide that was okay, as they would.
Well, the
You're a resident.
You just identify.
traditionally, I mean, going back years and years, the moderator has always, whenever there was an article having to do with some community organization, like the food bank or Sweet Sir or whatever, the moderator would say, is there anyone from this organization that would like to say something before we, discuss the issue? And
they haven't done that in a while.
So they didn't do that. They haven't done that. They did it last year or with when was the Tedford?
Last year when Andrew Lardy came.
Yeah.
Yes.
When we gave the capital donation to Tedford, we did that. But
So the question then, we did have a discussion, and I'm not sure it was ever resolved, is what happens if it's a library employee and also lives in the town.
I don't think they have any right to stop at the town.
They don't. I think as
speaking,
long as.
But they can certainly weigh in their evaluation of that person's argument, whether they're prejudiced because of their, you know, that's fine, that's.
But yeah, board members aren't paid, so.
Yeah, that
Board
came up,
members are-
yes. You mentioned
Trustees-
that misinformation that I should not have made a
Right,
motion.
people are, there's also, see you saying, I'm like, it's
Submit
not a,
that,
co-
yeah, like-
it's, I mean, again, it should be disclosed, but it's not a conflict of interest if you're not getting a
Thank you.
paycheck.
Thank you. And not only that, I'm expected to donate.
Yes, I get a check, it's got a minus sign
I
on it.
know.
To answer Lori's question, I think we
Yeah.
just go and just, you know, if there's people that are gonna be speak on behalf of the library, we just let the moderator know who those are before the meeting.
So I think there should be one individual, not a group of people.
Well,
That's
that was-
designated as sort of I'm gonna tell you the story, the library story before you debate the article or whatever, and then certainly.
And be
anything else
available
can
for
chime in.
questions.
Be available for questions, but I don't see any reason, I mean, Jack did speak at town meeting, I don't see any reason I can't do that. I suppose it's a good idea to, I mean, everybody knew that Tommy and I were board members, not a bad idea for you to identify yourself and Laura, you also,
Right.
and Elizabeth. Yeah,
Jack, I just wanted to thank you for your comments and that.
Exactly,
That's
yes.
wonderful.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the point you made about, you know, you are an employee of the library is in itself a valid point, like this is your livelihood.
Yeah.
And you're a Woolwich resident and this impacts you as your employment.
Yeah.
So I think that's valid.
the other thing that came, I mean, what we're planning to do tomorrow is we often do, we don't every year, but every so often we do sort of a debrief, like what went well at town meeting, what didn't, and, you know, processes. Mike Field is in his, I think it's his third year of doing the moderator. John Chapman did it for 40 years. He has a list of things that which maybe he went over last week about things that he would have done differently. We all have lists of things going forward, and so I think we'll be doing some of that. And so one of the things that came up was comments that happened that Jack, you heard, other people sitting in the back heard. We don't hear them, and so Mike can't tell people to shut up, you know, if he doesn't hear them. And so we're gonna try to figure out a way to sort of, it's a big room. It's the gym.
A person to step in case the moderator may have conflict, because that may be a way to approach this. He's already put his, was it the moderator or the selectman?
David, selectman? Is selectman that put
Selectman,
forward the
okay, so
motion.
board
Board
chair.
chair.
Yeah.
That's not the
He
Yeah.
is a board chair.
Okay.
But I was thinking of like kind of keeping decorum. Whether having a couple of people stationed in the back, say, you know, if you hear something, tell Mike so he can just sort of say, hey, you know.
I did think it was interesting that David King said about the acoustics in that room are so terrible, and yet they rely on vocal votes. That's kind of ironic, but.
You don't have to waive a.
But
It will not.
There were two written votes, two written ballots, and then there was one that was originally a voice vote, and then it went to a hand count. But I actually had problems with.
West Bath uses cards, is there?
Well, we were.
Yeah, we do too. We have
We are supposed.
colored cards. that
Yeah, I
people-
mean,
We're
I've been.
supposed to be using cards.
So if you're
Come in.
debriefing.
Yes, that's all.
Yeah, that's a, sorry,
You
that's a
still have
question,
this, I
okay?
see. Yeah,
Just a quick one. What's the process of setting the date?
we're gonna do it hopefully tomorrow.
So it's a select board, at the select board meeting?
Yeah, and we, you know, and some people want Saturday, some people want Wednesday, some people want Tuesday, and so it's not,
Purely select. board.
it's not a secret, we do not have a secret ballot town meeting, so.
So you'll let us know.
Yeah.
And then I think then we formulate our plan timing wise based on. you
Based
know,
on what it
that-
is, that, yeah, makes sense.
So we've got some other things still to go on tonight, including executive session, so I'm thinking maybe we should, for the time being,
Can I
we.
ask one more question of Alliston?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the warrant, it will be rewritten?
Has to be.
It will be rewritten, yeah, well,
Yeah,
And
but I'm not,
like,
that's to be determined.
like any warrant, the select board needs to agree on what it's gonna have and vote on it, so.
Right.
We have some
Has to be
ideas from the
published,
town
and that has to
attorney.
be within So
Um,
many days.
And I wasn't there at the last meeting, so I'm not sure. Our attorney is actually gonna be available by phone if we have questions. So,
Good.
yeah, are you planning to come tomorrow?
I wasn't going to.
Okay, I don't think, I've been telling people they don't.
Yeah, no point.
Yeah, I was wondering,
Okay.
I had some conversations on whether I would attend, but I.
Oh, business. All right, let's go into the, we got the old business, the warming and the cooling center.
Okay, I was the middle sister of man, no. Notice.
Says it's muted.
It's muted. The chat.
Is that actually in the chat?
Yep.
Just click on it.
Yeah. No, that's,
Okay.
okay. No. Nothing new, that was six or seven.
Yeah.
So that was nothing new.
Just for the record, though, Ashley's made some comments. I don't think they've been
Yeah, there's
acknowledged,
6 of
so-
them.
Would you want me to read what she
Yeah.
says? I'll go back, starting, or you can actually see them. Oh, these were votes, so we did get her votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we have.
That one was,
That's a question.
that's a question that came in about the library of things, and I've relayed that to Hannah.
Okay, right, the others were
Oh,
yes.
somebody gets sick.
Fundraiser, Morse runs their annual of May, so
Yeah.
she's commenting on that.
And I can comment, Ashley, if you're still listening, we did bump that up a little bit in the calendar, but I'll look at that and consider. I think I had it February, March, because I saw them posting their polls and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Okay, so there's her last two comments. So the chats, just so you know, they are part of the record. I do download, if there's a chat that gets saved as well.
Leah?
I just want, just for the record, that just the West Bath process went very smoothly this year. So that was a refreshing change. And I just, with Ashley on, I just want to also thank our select board and our moderator, just and Leslie came and was acknowledged to be available for questions, but.
Thank you for picking up that grid change from adding the patent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Ashley's floating hearts.
That was done as an amendment and voted on. There was no discussion, so.
Well, that's a tribute to everybody who worked on it, including you, Leah. to be
Exactly, thank you.
Keeping a close eye on that the whole time.
Jim Atherton too, just he's
Yeah.
straddling the two. So I think as far as going forward, I think we'll see how it goes for next year, but I just think it's nice to have library and town crossover.
Yeah.
In a more formal way.
Okay. So now we can move on to the warming and cooling.
Yes, so I have, Phil sent me an update. They're still waiting to hear from their legal team about our request to remove the Article 6 liability language from the MLA.
Bill being.
Phil
Davis.
Davis, I'm sorry, Phil is the head of the emergency management for SCEMA.
But wasn't there a question that was going to be written to the insurance company about the liability issue?
We did, at the last meeting, there was some debate between, which I reported on, Judy and the our broker. So what I decided to do was see if they would just remove it altogether so there would be no issue. So that's what I mentioned that at the last board meeting, that's what we were doing.
I thought, my recollection was that we got Judy's reservations and that you would take it to the insurance company to see what they would say.
So I did, and they disagree with one another. I mentioned that at the last meeting. They had differing opinions. So I can look back the minutes, I'll review the minutes, but they had differing opinions. I sent Judy's response to Elizabeth. She didn't agree with it. They have differing opinions. So what we did was that the easiest thing, and Judy suggested too, if they would just remove it, that whole liability, that would solve the problem.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that's what
I think what we asked was whether the underwriter would give affirmative coverage in the event you couldn't get it removed. And that, I don't think you've given us.
Right, because I'm waiting to find out if it can be removed. We're still at that. If it can't, then then we'll do the next step.
Okay.
So Judy's recommendation, if they would remove it, that would solve the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah, so that's where we are.
Okay.
To be continued.
New business, there are two things from the policy and personnel committee, the artist's letter of intent and the exhibits and displays policy.
originally from the art committee, our art
Art.
committee.
Okay, credit where credit is due,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll go ahead and just jump in. And Suki, just, so the first one I pulled up is just the artist letter of intent and agreement. These were, this was a while coming because the idea was to form an art committee and, under Suki's leadership, that happened and has become more solidified. And that's right, Jack. Thank you. And so at least in this document, the red, it's the art committee that is really going to be playing a role in some of this group. It'd be library director or the art committee. I think it's in the next one. Most of the time it's going to be at the discretion of the art.
We also wanted to add the clarifying like the library's position on promoting exhibits.
Yeah. But only thing I would say is that just when, they're good, it's very good to have this statement about how the whatever's put up does not necessarily reflect the views of the library and the staff.
That was in the original.
Yeah, I would put that every time there's an exhibit. I'm sure you put that up as well, so it's clear that.
Okay.
Really, I think that's just a good practice. Not it's nothing major, but it would be, clear.
Yeah, I guess the question is whether that goes in. Does that need to be in an edit?
I don't think so. If it can just be a standard practice, I think that'd be good. It just popped to mind for me when I saw that. I want to be clear to anyone who participates or who comes to an exhibit that person sees that.
So just basically the views.
Yeah, use that same language.
Okay.
Yeah,
just do that.
It's a very simple one sentence.
That's on the other, that's on the.
I think it's more in that policy for exhibits.
That's on the policy.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So that's the second, well, I guess we really should do each one.
Yeah, do each one, please.
So I guess I would ask for a motion
I'll make a motion.
to accept this. Do you second?
Yes, I did.
This is, I'm just returning, so it's Carl.
Conflict of interest.
And conflict of interest.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Great, because that was.
Ashley as well, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so the second one is the policy for exhibits and displays. And in that one, you're going to see library director removed so that it really is the art committee that's going to be taking that on. There was some.
The blue part that we took out was, we figured it's more procedures than policy, so we took that.
Oh, about the adhesives?
The blue part about the
Is that
walls and everything.
Oh, okay, great.
The adhesives, yeah.
In the middle.
And there was a mention about, library will promote the exhibit, posting information on its website, inclusion of regular weekly electronic newsletters.
You just have to sign back.
Yeah, no, it was more.
They did remove the same group or individual may display items no more than one time per year, and that was removed.
Right.
And then at the end, the political candidates, political parties, special political interest groups are prohibited from using library exhibit displays space to promote their interests. And it was felt to take that out, and that may get readdressed.
Because that was too.
Already letting people use the buildings, the community room, who have like their individual plans.
Yeah.
So that removes that piece, and it's up to the discretion of Leslie, who she has to make that judgment about whether it's.
It may merit a bigger discussion at some at a future date. About use of the community.
I think that's a community room policy.
Yeah, which is a separate
exhibit policy.
Right.
I think also the reason we removed this was sort of originally a policy that included all displays, that included the downstairs, what you see in the hallway, and that's a whole nother. So we wanted to really make it more about the displays in this room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
is in the title.
Right,
So I think
right.
that didn't really reflect that history.
Okay.
So this one does have a few more changes, but and this one had not been reviewed since 2021, so it's 5 years. So we've been trying to get this one. So this is great to get up to speed.
Motion that we approve the changes. Is there a second? All in favor of the approved policy is amended policy is provided, opposed, approved. Okay. That brings then to the regular agenda. It is now 6:39. So we still have.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
Make a motion to go into executive section, second, all in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Stop the recording.